Syrita, tell us a crazy story.
There's so many, but I think the one that I'm going to settle on is I was incarcerated in FCI, which is Federal Correctional Institute, Tallahassee, a women's prison. And they had just transferred this lieutenant from FDC Miami, the detention center in Miami. And the reason that they sent him to, or transferred him, was because he was having relationships with women who were incarcerated at the FDC.
He was a correctional officer?
He was the lieutenant.
Oh, wow. So.
And they sent him to an all-female prison when the whole reason that they moved him was relationships with women.
Smart.
Yeah, amazing. So after a while, of course, he's developed relationships,
Dirty dog.
Yeah, with about 5 or 6 women who were incarcerated. So they do this investigation, SIS, which is the investigative service for the institution. They have this big thing, and they decide they're going to make this bust, on the compound when he's getting ready to leave from work. The caveat was, we later found out he was HIV positive.
No way.
Yeah, some of the women ended up turning up to be HIV positive. So when they came on to the compound to arrest him, he had a weapon. So he started shooting at them. They started shooting back at him. 2 officers lost their lives that day, him and 2 additional officers. And then another one was wounded. And that happened inside the prison on the compound. And then, we were on lockdown for 2 weeks.
So did you hear the gunshots?
Yeah, it happened on the compound.
Y'all was freaking out?
Smokes.
Damn, that's wild.
Crazy. Yeah, that's the crazy story.
So, wait, so he was like, I'm not going down like this, so he just started shooting?
Yeah.
Just had 5 girlfriends, man, calm down. What was going to be the penalty?
Yes.
Well, I think probably he
you can't.
He had AIDS, and he knew that, and he was giving it to people, so that's a whole another...
In a position of power, and...
Yeah, I mean, because, a person that's
it.
incarcerated can't willingly enter into a relationship with a correctional officer.
Isn't that like malfeasance, or what is it?
Malpractice is what you're looking for?
No, malpractice was about doctors.
The law.
Anyway.
And
this isn't a law show. This is P2P.
Yeah. Man, that's crazy, though.
Yeah, that's my crazy. Probably right up there at the top.
So, this is Scott with This is Scott with Penitentiaries to Penthouses. On the left, we have your best friend in real estate.
For all your real estate needs.
What else do you do, Scott?
We also buy dumps. We buy houses that need to be renovated. And also we're running into a situation where if you're having an issue paying off your mortgage and you don't know what to do, we will take that burden away from you with the intentions to renovate the property and sell them, of course. But don't just let the peoples take your property. We'll take it. All right?
And in front of us, we have...
Picking better peoples to take.
Yeah, better peoples.
Better peoples.
Let's go.
In front of us, we have Syrita Steib.
Steib. It's the German side.
I knew I was going to mess it up.
It's the German side. It's okay.
Really?
Yeah, German.
So, Syrita, I've been knowing Syrita for a little while now. Syrita is a very, very, in my opinion, prominent figure in the criminal legal space, but also a whole bunch of other things that you do. I'm not going to spoil your story, so I'll let you tell it. But Syrita, where are you from? And tell us a little bit about maybe your upbringing and then kind of what led you to where you're at today.
Yeah, sure. So I'm from Louisiana. Been here all my life. I grew up in a small town.
What
Vacherie.
small town? Vacherie.
I'm from Back Vacherie, to be exact.
Back of Vacherie.
Back Vacherie, yes.
So you're kind of like Cajun.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
St. James Parish. Graduated from St. James High. Yeah, absolutely.
Nice. Do you speak? Did your family speak Cajun French?
Yeah. So my grandmother, my aunts, my uncles, a lot of my cousins, I have always been adverse to the norms. So I grew up in a Cajun French speaking community and family. We had to take French classes every day in elementary school.
Yeah.
But I wanted to learn Spanish. So I.
So did you completely rebel against the Cajun French?
100%. I understand enough to like
Get by.
not allow my family to talk about me too bad.
Like, hold up.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah, like I got that.
Yeah.
And enough of like French, as a whole. I can speak some proper French, if you want to call it. Just
Formal.
because it's not even formal.
Oh, wow.
I think it's proper.
Improper French.
Yeah, something of the sort.
Okay.
Also enough to get by. But like my sister, she's fluent in French, Cajun, and formal. So
Yeah, I actually. So I go on a hunting trip every year, and all the guys that I go to that particular camp with, they all speak Cajun French, and since I was a kid, I've been listening to it, and I've got other people in my life that speak it, and I've never taken the time to learn, but I've always wanted to, and I haven't. Before I decease one day, I would like to learn. I think it's just a cool language. It's one of those like esoteric languages that isn't prominent across the country, but it's really centralized to here. And one day I hope to do.
Well, let's do it right now. So let's pause the podcast. Give them a little lesson real quick.
You want to give me a lesson, Syrita?
So did you end up
Not
switching
at
to
all.
Spanish? So like while they're going in their elementary French, you're in elementary
no,
Spanish?
I'm going to French and I'm taking classes. That's why I can understand. I read a lot better than I speak. But while I was incarcerated is when I really started like picking up on Spanish.
Okay.
And trying to like learn it. So I understand a lot in Spanish. I can read more Spanish than I speak as well. But what I found is that they have a lot of similarities. So sometimes, even if you're listening for certain words, no matter if it's in French or Spanish and even, slight Italian, they're similar.
Some like root words.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. A lot of languages like that. It's a melting pool of different languages built together. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you're from Vacherie. You grew up there. You went to school there. If you want to maybe just kind of tell us a little bit about your family and kind of maybe what caused you to go to federal penitentiary.
So I think, growing up in the family that I grew up in, a lot of people always like tie a certain socioeconomic background to like people who are incarcerated or this story or picture of who's incarcerated. My mom was a judge when I went to prison. My dad was a supervisor at one of the refineries on the river. So from the outside in, two-parent household, both parents college graduates, and I was on a full scholarship to Xavier University in physics and engineering.
Shout out.
Really?
Yeah, and I was in the Navy.
Really?
At the time I was arrested, yeah.
So you were a sea woman.
Yes.
A
I was
sea woman.
Yes. But I still found myself in prison, at the age of 19. And what it was all wrapped in is that growing up, the experiences with trauma and them not being dealt with. I was physically abused as a child, sexually assaulted at 16. And I think for me, because of who I am, and I always have had like this resiliency or like, I'll just get over it or it's fine. I made the decision at 16 that the person who sexually assaulted me was my cousin's boyfriend, and he had watched me grow up. She babysat us when we were kids. So
She was older?
Yeah.
And he was older?
yeah,
Okay,
so
gotcha.
he had been around all my life. So to me, he represented somebody safe, and like I'm in a vulnerable position. I'm 16. I'm smoking weed and I'm drinking, and he's the person that I'm like, oh, he's gonna deliver me back home safely. So like I choose
You put a lot of
to
trust in
go.
him.
Yeah, because you've been around me since I'm 8, 9, babysitting with my cousin.
Yeah, you're not supposed to be a creeper.
That part. So when it happens and I'm dealing with that, you go through these issues of like, oh shit, it's my fault. I was drinking, I should have known better. And then when you build up the courage, I build up the courage to have the conversation with my cousin. The first thing she tells me is, oh, I heard you were, messing with such and such. And I'm like, what? And like in that moment, she had a young child, all of these things. I was like, if I tell her this, she is not going to be able to handle it. So let me just not say anything, because if I say something, it's going to destroy
What she
so many
had,
lives.
yeah.
Right. And in that moment, I also knew that her asking me that question automatically meant that she was not going to believe anything that I said because she wasn't in a space to do so.
She's already defensive.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God. And then so I just didn't say anything, but it caused me to like view sex differently. It caused me to view relationships differently. It caused me to act out and just like all of these different things. And it became a way of like now me saying that I'm not going to trust people. I'm not going to do these things and just, you know, just a whole lot of like harmful behaviors. So for me, that was my story of like, even with all of the things that I had access to, how I ended up, you know, in prison was really not dealing or having an outlet or being able to deal with, you know, the traumas that I had grew up with or experienced. So I found myself sentenced to 10 years in federal prison, 20 years in state prison, and $1.9 million in restitution.
Jeez.
All for the same thing.
Oh, really?
Know?
So the state and the feds picked it up?
Yep. Different pieces of it. So this is a crazy story. You know, my charges, I actually participated in the robbery of a car dealership.
Yeah.
So we stole cars from the car dealership, took
Nice
cars off
ones?
the show. Yeah, I mean,
Like
Hyundais?
no, like sports cars or
so at the time the Volkswagen Beetles had
Yeah.
just dropped again. So they had just
the
opened
newer
the
model
new
ones.
Yeah, like the
new
2000 ones, 99 626s, Mazda 626s, and the Jettas. You know, they were like big then.
Yep.
So it was a Volkswagen and Mazda dealership. So we took the cars, the showroom full of cars.
In
and,
New Orleans?
No, we were in Texas.
Oh, you went to Texas.
So this is why, you know, we brought cars across state lines. You know, it was just a multitude of things. So
That's how the feds got you.
Yes, the feds ended up charging us for the theft of the arson of the building. Because after we took the cars,
Burnt
we blew
them.
it up. No, the dealership.
Yeah.
Oh shit! This is like, was it an all-female cast in here too? Is this?
It was 2 women, 2 men. So like, you know,
Okay.
you ever seen Gone in 60 Seconds?
Well,
Yeah.
so I was thinking of a movie.
I was
trying
thinking
to
it
say,
with Queen Latifah, where it's a
So you
full.
thinking about Set It Off?
Yeah, Set It Off. I couldn't think of the name.
No.
Yes, I was like, what?
It was
this
more
is Set It Off.
Nicolas Cage Gone in 60
Okay.
Seconds.
Hey, even good. Nicolas Cage, shout out.
They made the movie after our crime.
So it's about y'all. This is a documentary. It's a documentary.
Not gonna say that. Not gonna say that. But hey,
they copied your swag, man.
yeah, you know, just a tad. So,
So
they
y'all
charged us with the fire in the feds and then the theft of the cars in the state. Weird. Yes.
So did they do that because they knew the state wasn't gonna be able to stick you for what the feds stuck you for?
So they had no evidence. So no eyewitnesses, no surveillance, no DNA, like nothing to tie us to.
Perfect crime.
Just one of my co-defendants,
Ratted.
he told his sister what he did.
And she told.
Her boyfriend,
Her boyfriend told.
his friend,
Oh,
and his friend went
Pillow
forward for the
talking.
reward.
Lots of pillow talking. Damn.
And the friend went forward for the reward. So when they picked him up, he confessed, and then he tried to like set us up over the phone. So because the federal system has like conspiracy,
Yeah.
I had like 5 conspiracy counts on my indictment. But the state couldn't prosecute us unless the feds had a conviction, like, or we admitted to it or something like that. So because of the way the conspiracy laws work, you know, I was guilty. I did exactly what they say that I did. So for me, it was about making sure that I lessened the impact of like what I was, you know, pleading out to.
Right.
And at the time, because you're not equipped to know the system and all of the
You were
collateral
young.
consequences and all of those different things, I actually didn't understand the full impact of like me saying, yes, I did this. So I pleaded guilty to the federal, in the federal system. They gave me 10 years, which was 120 months, because the crime that they had me plead to had a mandatory minimum, even though the crime
And you got
only
to do
held.
85 on that.
Oh yeah, I did 9 years and 2 months.
Jesus.
So even if the crime actually held 2 to 3 years because of the mandatory minimum attached to that particular statute, the judge didn't have any discretion. That was my first time, you know, being convicted of a felony or whatever. And I ended up doing 10 years, you know, getting 10 years there. So then the state then charges us with the crime of the theft of the car. So they charge us with criminal mischief over $200,000. So they charge us for all of the cars in the state. So then I got 20 years in the state of Texas, but it was non-violent. So I actually ended up, making parole on the state charge before I was even released from the federal system.
They ran it concurrent?
They ran it concurrent.
Well, what a blessing.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of people that do Fed time and then have to go do state time.
Well, that is so what ends up happening is if the one thing, even though my lawyer was like trash, the one thing that he did do right is if you get your federal sentence first, they have the option to run it concurrent. But if you get your state sentence first, the feds are going to stack it. The way that the law is set up.
So that was actually a good thing that you got your Fed time first.
Because one of my co-defendants, he went to the state first, and he had to leave the state and go do federal time. I have a client right now. He's been incarcerated 51 years that I'm working with. He's a family friend. He did 50 years in Angola, and he just got transported to the federal system. And they're trying to tell him, like, he's under the old law, but they're not going to see him for another 10 years to go to the parole board in the federal system.
So basically, he's got a proverbial life sentence as it stands.
Yeah. So that was the only good thing that happened. So, but, I was 19 when I went in. I got out at 29.
So what? So I'm sure you bounced around from different federal facilities, correct? You went to Oklahoma first or something, or where'd you go?
Oh Lord! So my first 5 years of incarceration, I was at 6 facilities. I used to fight a lot.
Yeah.
You got them hands? I'm too small.
Yeah.
Got to know how to fight.
Yeah. I'm with you.
And
yeah,
I wear glasses. I'm thin, I'm small, and I wear glasses. That's a bad combination to go anywhere and not know how to fight.
Yeah, so you had to get it in. Did you know how to fight before you went? You kind of learned as you. Okay, gotcha.
I was from the country.
Yeah, you are tough. Yeah.
It was from the country. We didn't have no fast food places, nothing to do but watch the sugar cane grow
and fight. Yeah, that's nice.
That's all you do. Ride 4-wheelers, that type of stuff.
No, I'm familiar with the lifestyle. A lot of people go to prison and they either two things happen. You know this. They ain't never been in a fight in their life, but they lived a wild lifestyle, or they have been in a bunch of fights. But you're either gonna learn how to fight, you're gonna cower down, and then all the other stuff happens to you. You know what I mean? So, yep.
Yeah, and I remember it was me and one other girl that were on the compound. We were the youngest on the compound.
Really?
Yeah, and I remember these grown women. I remember I wasn't on a compound probably 2 weeks, and there was this girl. She's over probably 6'4", 6'5", big, on the compound. People are afraid of her. Yeah. And I remember being in the bathroom, and she walks in, and she was like, "You're gonna do this," and blah blah blah. And then one of my other friends that I had knew prior to, she comes in. She fights all the time too. And I was like, listen.
Let's get her. She got to go.
This is not how it's going down. I'm not doing 10 years like this. You know what I'm saying? So it was just, you got to grow up fast, you know? It's survival of the fittest.
Dog eat dog. So did you fight her?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you get in a fight, and what? They're just like, "Oh, you got to go somewhere else," or do you continuously fight and they just move you around?
You stayed in the Bronx or something?
So no, I stayed. So that fight we actually didn't get in trouble for, but my issue is that I didn't discriminate against who I fought.
Right.
So I had a really big
equal
issue
opportunity busting ass. Okay.
with the police.
Oh
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah, I stayed into it with them.
Yeah. I'm with you.
So every time I got shipped, it was due to some
Battery
type
on
of
correctional officers.
interaction with me fighting with the police.
Sometimes you got to do it.
I think that sometimes you're just born in a way where, you're just genetically wired to be a fighter.
Right.
And at 19, I didn't understand what had happened to me, but I also didn't understand there were other ways that I could fight outside of physical altercations. That was the only thing that I knew. That was what I reverted to. But a lot of people say, knowing Syrita and who she was, what I do today is like a perfect transition because it still allows me the opportunity to fight, but just in a way that is way more meaningful, way more impactful, and really like improves the lives of people. Even though physically when I was fighting, it was for the same reasons. It just was no outcomes other than harm to myself.
Yeah, I can understand so there are two different kinds of correction officers. You got ones that treat you with respect, let you do your time. They don't try to. Then you got ones who are insecure and they come in with a chip on their shoulder. Those are the ones that get beat up, and you have to. So, like, even though you're incarcerated, the mindset of the correction system is to make you submit, break you down, da-da-da-da. It doesn't have to be distasteful and disrespectful. Oftentimes, you get gung-ho, especially younger correction officers. They come in, and they have a chip, and they take it out on you, or they try to exert that power. And you can only you put a dog in a cage, and you mess with it over and over and over again. When that cage comes open, the dog might bite you. And it's the same thing with humans. You put somebody in a cage, and you keep poking at them. You keep poking at them, and then when you respond, it's a big deal, right? But nobody on the other side sees like this person has been poked and prodded for however long these people have done that. You know what I mean?
But I think also too, like the thing that people don't understand is like there's certain types of people that are attracted to policing and corrections. Some people get into it because they believe in law and order and they want to do the right thing. But a vast majority of them are looking for the power that they don't own or have in their
personal life,
you know?
or something like that.
Because it's powerful people don't walk around
With their chest poked out.
and let you know that they're powerful. You know, a lot of times they're like, hey, I really don't want people to know how well connected I am because I don't want nobody asking me for shit or I don't want to do certain things or whatever. So people who hold the greatest power are the ones that you least suspect.
Yeah.
But the people in their lives who have absolutely no power walk around every day in search of power. So when they are unleashed on people who are oppressed or can't, fend for themselves or can't stand up for themselves, it's like open season.
Yeah, their mouth starts watering for it.
Yeah, because that is their validation on a daily basis of how powerful they are. Because really the only time they're powerful is when you are at work and you're incarcerating people who can't. But they're the same people who on the streets, like, don't say anything, don't
get it, yeah.
Nothing. Like their husband or their wife runs the household, it's just all of those different things. But you come into this setting and you're like, I'm going to take advantage of these individuals so I can validate myself, because I'm in search of power, And
there's very little accountability on their end when they do. So like, when they do wrong, right? Whether they mess with you or they send people, because a lot of times correction officers are good at this, sending other people at you, like other prisoners or other inmates. And all these little games that they play, there's no recourse usually. Now, if they do something heinous and it gets out to the news, then there's this big outbreak of, correction officer fired. But they've been doing this for years, 10, 12, 13 years. And so, like, I think lack of accountability in that sense and, like, the training to dehumanize people and treat you like you're a convict, right? That whole mindset. I think that is, like, I've always said that when corrections shifts to actual corrective behavior, like modification, then recidivism will reduce. But if there's ever a question in anybody's mind, like, why does Louisiana lead the world in incarceration? Well, look how corrections is ran. And you can do all these measures of implement and program this amount of money for this community initiative, but if you're still putting these people as head of the prison, the wardens and the colonels and the captains and all this stuff, and they're still of this correction mindset, it's all about security and less about, what's the word I'm looking for? Rehabilitation. Mm-hmm. That, like, one thing that we had a guy on here, George King? Mm-mm. Well, he spent 20-something years in Angola, and now he's a warden at a prison in Mississippi. But, like, the shift that's happening there as a result of having somebody who's been incarcerated, understands, and putting programs in place for that is interesting. You know what I mean?
But I don't know how you could be incarcerated for 20 years and then become a warden. Like,
Like you would have disdain for that position. You wouldn't want to be in it.
it's not so much disdain, because I do think that you need people who have experience, like leading things, right? But just myself as an individual, how I innately have like a visceral reaction to people being imprisoned.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could participate in being the person that is in charge of incarcerating those individuals, knowing like what happens and what is done.
I think he's more of like
know?
a programs ward, not like the warden of the prison.
But I mean, just even being in a part of like the whole system as a whole. But I mean, you got to have people who are willing to go on the inside. You got to have people that are working on the outside. So it's like, I respect it.
Yeah.
But like for me,
You wouldn't do it.
yeah, I don't know. I'm probably the one that would leave the door open and let everybody run out. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on, y'all, let's go.
You're more of an abolition mindset than a rehabilitation. I get it. I understand.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So I'm
yeah.
always working from a space of abolition with the understanding that it's going to take a long time for us to get there. You know?
Absolutely.
So I always tell people the work that I do today, present day, is like for 40 years from now. But I just wanted to say really quickly, the thing about the accountability piece is absolutely right, because the first time that I got shipped was this warden. She was on the compound. She was racist. She was like a horrible person, right?
Yeah.
And I'm 21 or something at the time, and I'm supposed to be getting off of lockdown on a particular day. So I'm waiting all day to get off. You set your mind to say, well, I'm gonna be on lockdown for a week. I get off today.
How long had you been in the hole?
So at that time, it was like 2 weeks or something like that. I had been in a hole. And I was supposed to be getting out. And she comes by my door and I'm like, hey, I'm supposed to be getting out today. She was like, I'm not letting you out today. I was like, what? And it was like, I lost it. So now I just broke the glass on the door, with my hand, because I was just so irritated by the whole situation. And, that uncovers something else. But the whole reason that I ended up like, we got into it is because she spit in my face.
Oh, really?
And it's like, the dehumanization of like me being at your will, letting me do all of these different things. And then the icing on the cake is after you tell me I'm supposed to be getting out, you're not letting me out. All of these different things. And then, I cause a whole ruckus. They come in, they suit it up. They, drag you out the room. Yeah. All of that. And like, I'm fighting everybody.
Like you're 900 pounds and they can't lift you up.
Oh, I used to act like I was 900 pounds. But then when I see the writing on the wall, then you go limp.
Boy,
so
if
they
I
mad.
could get a camera to see how that was, man.
You go limp and you're like, all right, I'm done. I'm tired. But
Did
then
they tase over there?
So no, not there, not where I was. So I've been in places where they like do the pepper spray, put you in the cold boxes and all that stuff.
With Fox and then tase and all that. I mean, it sucks because like you'll be hard. You're in a hard mindset, and then once you get hit with that electricity, it's over with. All you see is green.
So I haven't been tased. So I was incarcerated in 2000. So like tasers weren't like
Popular.
like a thing.
Yeah,
it was more the pepper spray.
Yeah.
So like all throughout Texas, that was how they forced you into compliance.
Pepper spray?
With pepper spray.
Yeah.
And then throw you in a cold
That'll
box.
get your mind right though too.
What's
But
the
then-
cold box? Just like a.
So you're in a t-shirt and boxers, no socks, no nothing. They pepper spray you and they put you in a cell that's like 40 degrees.
Yeah.
And it's
It's like a torture chamber.
Yeah, cold. The cold box.
Mm-hmm.
So I had all those experiences, but like just for her to like spit
on you. Yeah.
That's
not
like,
on me, in my face.
Yeah, that's like the OG insult from like childhood to like just everything.
Yeah, I did a year on solitary after that straight. Like,
well, and that's the other thing.
Rec alone, cell alone.
Somebody can provoke you to the point of spitting in your face, and you respond. You're a human. So like that whole idea, like I get to dehumanize you, but if you respond, I'm punishing you. That doesn't make. That's not how you change.
That's where they
people.
get their kicks off. These
I know.
particular people, as she was talking about earlier, but like they're like that is that. Their entire like applying for the job, the day in, day out, the wife, the husband saying you're not a man or a woman, then like that, like getting into it with you. Then after it's all said and done, like you said, the icing on the cake, that's like what they've lived their life for. It's like, and then you know what I did? I spit in her face because she can't do shit. Like that is how they. And then that's how that particular person.
Then I'm a year on lockdown.
Boom.
Rec alone, cell alone, no commissary, no visitation, no telephone. And then after the year, I'm shipped to Connecticut. So I'm shipped from Texas to Connecticut. You know, I mean, it's just like the things.
How many prisons did they send you to?
6. Well, 2 jails and 4 prisons.
So you was a traveler.
I had.
Did they fly you, or was it van?
Oh no, most of mine.
Fly?
Yeah. Most
they
times,
shipping you across the country.
Yeah.
Did they send you to Maxes or something?
So they only had 1 max in
for females.
For women, and I was in Texas, like where I started.
Yeah.
So instead of sending me to Max, because I'm still on the same compound for the most part, even though it's a segregated part, they shipped me to Connecticut. I get to Connecticut, and then I get shipped to Coleman, Florida, and I get shipped to Tallahassee, Florida. And then that's where I ended my time. So those were the 4.
Are those mediums or lows or?
So medium and low are kind of like together. So when I went to Coleman, I was in a camp, but I was only in the camp like 2 weeks, and then they put me back behind the fence.
Oh, really? The camps are where it's at though. Like as far as like.
Oh, not for me, because I'm not incarcerating myself. You give me a truck, you tell me to go drive around and do these things, I'm going to my house.
I understand. Yeah,
I don't have that type of self-discipline.
Yeah,
and that's what I told him. I'm like, listen, I got 5 years left to do. This not gonna work for me.
Yeah, having that little taste of freedom, and then
because I'm going. Y'all gonna be coming get y'all truck in New Orleans. I'm going home.
Hey, at least you're honest with them. Yeah,
go on, put me back behind the fence where I can't escape.
Did you have an opportunity to do like any programming or anything while you were there?
Toward the end, so. You know, this problem, so a lot of the programming that we provide in my organization, Operation Restoration, is focused on people who have long lengths of time, because I was 19, had I had an opportunity to get into some type of like educational programming or whatever, I could have had my PhD or my master's or whatever it was before I even was released from prison. But a lot of times, the only thing that's available to you immediately might be like GED or something like that. But any other type of programming, there's a list. You got to get on the list. And then based on your release date is how they select whether or not you're getting into the program.
Time oriented. Yeah.
So it wasn't until I got to Tallahassee, and I had been incarcerated maybe about 5.5 years at the time, I was able to start taking college courses. No, I'm lying. It was almost 7 years I had been incarcerated. And I was able to start taking college courses while I was incarcerated. And it was like immediately, you know, my incarceration changed. You know, at 5 years, I was ready. You know, I had made 25. A light went off and was like, hey, you got to do something different. But as soon as I got in classes, it was like I had something to like look forward to. I'm working toward this business management certification. Yeah.
You had that mind shift. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, education, I find, especially when you're incarcerated, like it does do. There's like a light bulb that clicks because you find like some worth in yourself. And so you were.
But see, education was never like an issue for me, right?
Right.
So like when I told you,
were you smart before you went in?
So I had a full scholarship to Xavier in physics and engineering.
Oh yeah, I remember
right?
she's saying that.
See, I wasn't. I was a dummy.
Yeah, you wasn't a dummy. You just didn't have nobody to focus on.
Street smart, bro.
I was street smart, but like
everybody got skills.
Like I skinned by my teeth to graduate high school, but like I didn't have anybody. Like my parents were good, right? But like nobody was on me about like my career choices. Like I wanted to be a nurse, but when I got a DWI, I got kicked out of that. That was like over with. So streets. But like I didn't understand that I had like an intelligent thought like 2 years into my incarceration. I was like, damn, that came out of the blue. You know? like really, I remember the thought that I had, and I remember thinking, damn, that's kind of like, you know, I had an intelligent thought. And then when I started getting some education, like college education, I was able to exercise my brain and do different things with my mind that I never did before. And
but people who are in the streets have to be analytical, Scott.
Yeah.
You know,
he's not taking that into account.
Yeah. So, but it's like formal education, right?
Yeah.
Or like you said, you're giving yourself purpose. But the other thing you got to be careful for, what I had to remember, like once I got out, was sometimes we want to get validation from the level of education that we achieve, right? Because you're trying to fill these holes with like, oh, I'm not shit.
Insecurities,
Right. So when I got out and I got my degree in clinical laboratory science and I started applying to med school and all of these different things, I'm like, Syrita, what is your driving force to go to med school? You know? And is it like you like helping people, you enjoy, working under the microscope and all these different things, but like what is the real reason you're going to medical school? And like if I had to be like completely honest with myself, in my mind somewhere I thought if I'm able to amass a whole bunch of letters behind my name, then somehow I become more valuable or more relevant, or people are going to listen to what I have to say about this work.
You're no longer like an inmate, or you're just you're
formal.
You're stacking all of it. And maybe that'll drown out.
I had that same insecurity with, and I don't know if you had it, but like when I came home, I was kind of timid. Like I'm vocal about my incarceration, but when I first came home, I was super scared that people, especially in the interpreting group, were gonna find out that I was formerly incarcerated, because I thought it was like this big bad thing. And it wasn't until I gained some security and some confidence about my story that it wasn't that bad after all. But like I think a lot of people come home, and you deal with this because in the work that you do. But like it's like we're so afraid to be found out, or we're afraid like what media has portrayed to the community and what they think about people that come home from prison. It's like that we do have so much more potential than we give ourselves credit for.
But it's also the dehumanization. But the dehumanization that happens while you're in there.
Yeah, no, for
right?
real.
I tell people all the time, I was like, I didn't hear my first name for 10 years.
You had like a number?
Your last name or inmate or whatever it was that they decided to call you. But nobody said Syrita for 10 years. So when I got out and somebody said, hey, Syrita, like I didn't even know they was talking to me. It took a minute for my mind to catch up with what they just said, that like, oh shit, somebody talking to me.
Yeah.
And even disconnecting you from your name that's given to you at birth is like the biggest part of dehumanization, because if I don't refer to you by your name, then you don't really matter.
Yeah.
So even trying to find that connectivity back to your name is a big piece of like those insecurities about like who you are, and then it's like you still trying to figure out what the hell just happened to you, because it's like basically like somebody just picked you up, they kidnapped you, they put you in this alternative reality of sorts, and prison itself has its own like community, its own rules and regulations, whatever. You live inside of this community for XYZ amount of years, and then the gate is open and you're dropped back into like the place where you were prior, but you don't know this place anymore. So then you're like, not only are you like trying to get reacclimated with society or re-enter, whatever the terminology is that they want to use, you really are trying to figure out who the hell you are in a place that's supposed to be home, but everybody treats you like they did when you first left, because that is how your relationship was interrupted. I remember having like a lot of conversations with mom. I'm like, Mom, I'm 30, I'm not 19. Like, you can't keep treating me like I'm 19. But like our physical interactions and relationships were interrupted at 19.
Right, so it picks up back where it left off.
Where you left off, because that is what they know, and that's where you're comfortable. You go back into old habits. So you don't get to know the 30-year-old because the only person you knew was a 19-year-old. And now we're all trying to play like this game of catch up. So then it also like adds in this layer of you wanting to make new relationships and not be connected to your past, because I can't even tell you for how many years, like people walk up to me and be like, oh my God, it's good to see you. I haven't seen you in so long, and I hope you're going to stay out of trouble. And I'm like,
wow,
I haven't been in trouble in 14 years. What
are you
talking about? Or I would meet people and they'll be like, hey, like my mom, she would be like, don't drink. If you go out, like call me, blah, 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 whatever. I was like, I don't even drink anymore. Don't smoke weed. Don't do any of those things anymore. So like, even for you to like preface me saying, hey mom, I'm going out, I'm going this place or whatever, and like your major concern is like me getting in trouble. So now I'm picking up the pieces of your trauma while I'm trying to deal with mine.
Yeah.
Man, I never thought about it like that. I dealt with similar things when I came home, but I never thought about it in that sense. It's interesting. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because all that's, I think everybody who's done a significant amount of time deals with that. There's that gap. The gap that you said, and it's like when I came home, everybody remembered Scott, drug dealer, wild, crazy, party animal, whatever. And there was a period of time, even when I was trying to marry my wife, people were like warning her. And I was completely different. But that gap, and there's nobody puts a human there during that gap. So like you said, they only know the person that was picked up by the UFO and brought to a different planet. Mm-hmm. And that's who they expect to come back. Because they don't know the different you, and they don't get to know the different you.
All these assumptions of who you are placed upon you because that is all that they know. And then a lot of times, like, your relationships with people while you're incarcerated are like so surface. Like, I remember my mom coming to visitation and we're talking about the weather and we're talking about sports. We're talking about family members. We're talking about where they're going and what's going on.
Small talk.
But I'm not able to tell them that, shit, somebody on the tier just died last night, you know. This person in the hole like swallowed razors and killed themselves, or, you know, just like all of the different things. Like, how do you talk about that in visitation?
Yeah, the chaos that we see daily in there.
That you live in.
Yeah.
You know?
Chaotic.
And it's like, you don't go out in visitation and talk about that. So it's like, not only is it like designed to like break family connections and all of those things, it's like, you literally have not had a legit, real conversation with the people that are closest to you for the entire time that you're in prison.
Yep. You're right.
Those conversations are reserved for the people you're incarcerated with.
Yep.
Your friend that you may find that you're in there, and that's the person that you begin to like confide in and depend on and talk about, and you build your family in there, and then you get out and you can't even talk to them.
Yeah. I know that was one of the hardest things for me is the relationships with especially the deaf guys that I lived with. Like, I think I had like this guilt, like that I got to leave and they didn't, like, for a while, man, and it messed with me. But like, I always, like, I desired to talk, because that's who I talk to every day for umpteen, you know, however long. And then you just, again, abruptly, even though it's a good thing that you're home,
you kidnapped.
Yeah, but it's like you're abruptly removed from that, from people that you're close with again. So
I tell people going into prison and being released from prison, even though you don't think about it in this way, is the most isolating experience that you could ever feel. Yeah. And you're grieving on both sides. So you're grieving for the life you just lost and what you gave up going into prison. And that's an isolating feeling. And then you find your way in here and then you're like ripped out again. So now you're grieving the people that you left behind, that guilt and all of that stuff. And you can't talk to your family who you've now just been dumped back onto, because they're like, oh, well, you're home now. Like, why are you worrying about what's going on in here? Or, you know, and like, I literally was at my last institution for 5 years straight. So I had people that I started my time with who had now came to the prison where I was. So I had literally spent like the last 8 years with certain people that I was incarcerated with, or 7 years or 6 years or 5 years, every single day.
Yep. It's
experiencing
like
the same trauma, you know, living in a room. Like my last roommate assignment, we were in the room together for like 3 years. So living in like this little bitty box for 3 years with somebody is like, and then when I leave, like, I'm not supposed to think, I can't talk, I can't check on them to make sure that they're okay, check on their family, like none of that.
Can't send a text, good morning, queen.
Nothing.
Nothing. Yeah, it's wild.
So it's almost like whenever you go in, there's that isolation, and then whenever you come out, there's that isolation. Like, it's all new. Because, like, you're going in for double-digit years, you know, so shit like iPhones and stuff out. Now there's probably a new Volkswagen model out, you know. That
Listen, the internet didn't exist when I went in.
You went in before internet?
Yes.
Come home and life was just different.
Man, come home and somebody's telling me to apply for a job on
online. Like, what computer?
So we had like IBM.
Yeah, I know.
My class in school was C++ and Java programming. So when I went in, the IBM model still had the circles. You know, you type in this.
JKL,
you know,
semicolon.
Listen.
Mavis Beacon, did you do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's like, and then you get out and like the world has like left you in the rearview mirror, right? And then you have to explain to people like why you can't work a smartphone, why I was like, I remember going to workforce like clear as day. They wanted you to go there, register so you could apply for jobs or whatever. So I go in and the computer they sit me in front of is off.
Oh shit.
Didn't know how to turn it on?
Listen, didn't even know how to turn it on. Nobody said this is the power button on the CPU, this is how you turn it on or whatever. Nothing, right? So I'm sitting there and I'm like, ask the lady for help or whatever. And I'm like, something's wrong with the computer. I'm like, it's not on. I'm trying to touch it. She was like, you just need to turn it on. And you know me, I snap and I'm like, before I knew it, I didn't cuss. Then I'm like, I just got out of prison after 10 years. These things didn't even exist before I went in. Put it on so I could figure out what's going, like I just snapped, right? And then what it did was it gave me a negative feeling around computers. So I didn't want to learn. I didn't want to be on them because it was something that immediately somebody
Kinda
else
like
was able
inferiority almost. Yeah.
make me feel so stupid about that I didn't even know how to turn on a computer. Now you can't be vulnerable or tell people or ask people for help. It was the same thing. I'll go to Victoria's Secret for the first time,
Got them fresh pair of thongs?
No, I was trying to go buy a bra.
Oh.
Because in prison you wear sports bras. Women wear sports bras, right? So I went in at 19, got out at 29. So my shape is a whole lot different. When I went in, I probably was like a A and a half.
Right.
And I get out, I'm a little full B or something, know. So I get out and I'm like, go to Victoria's Secret and I'm asking them to buy a bra. And she's like, well, what size do you wear? I said, ma'am, I don't know. What size I wear. She's like,
this lady's probably.
I've been wearing sports bras for 10 years.
So she was like, what do you mean? You don't know what size? Like, what the last time that you bought a bra? She was like, the last time that you bought a bra, like, what was the cup size? Or are you a 34 or 32? I'm in the middle of the mall. Again.
Feeling
inferior and like having a snap on somebody. So I'm turning around, I'm like, listen, I was just in prison for the last 10 years. I don't know what size bra I wear. Don't y'all have like measuring tapes or something? That's why I'm here. To figure this shit out. But it's always like you have to have this certain level of like, I don't even know. It's like almost like you can't feel the feelings that you're actually feeling.
You don't know how to process it.
Like a weird like patience kind of like just to like, oh my God, lady. And you don't even know how to like just say like, I don't even know what you're talking about right now.
Mm-hmm. Because they make you feel like, well, why don't you?
They make you feel stupid. They look at you crazy.
Yes.
It's like you're an alien.
Yes. Instead of just saying,
let me help you. Customer service is dead.
So you hear that, people listening or watching, if somebody has no idea what the hell you're talking about and you think, hey man, we're just trying on shoes here, maybe they just went to prison for a long time and they don't get what you're saying. So have a little compassion out there. Damn it.
Just a tad.
Just a tad. Well, look, we're coming to an end, but I want to talk about today.
Okay.
So tell me what year you got released.
2009.
2009. All right. What was your biggest challenge coming home? Well, was that like kind of
technology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a lot of people. Especially like the people that you're talking about did 50 years and stuff like that. I can't imagine.
So technology, and I was released post Katrina.
Oh, wow.
So I went back to New Orleans. Even though I'm from Vacherie or whatever, like I told you, I was at Xavier. I had moved to New Orleans. My grandfather, everybody is from there.
Mm-hmm.
Vacherie was fine. It hadn't changed at all. But like being put in a halfway house in New Orleans, in a city that I knew prior to going to prison.
Or you thought you knew.
Get out, and it's like unrecognizable. Like everything that I thought was gonna like anchor me to the community. I tell people like I had 3 things I wanted to do as soon as I hit New Orleans. I wanted crawfish.
Shout out.
I wanted glazed donuts from McKenzie's.
Hell yeah.
And I wanted a stuffed bell pepper from Triangle Deli, right?
Try that.
All 3 of those things weren't even available. Didn't even exist. Like McKenzie's had closed. They no longer existed.
So I grew up in Metairie and Harahan, and until I was like 10 or 11. But I remember Tasty's Donuts, McKenzie's, all that. K&B drugstores, no longer there. Hey, do you watch the comedian? This is off subject. Do you watch the comedian from New Orleans, Mario the Entertainer or whatever? Okay, he did. I'm gonna send you the link later on. But
send me the link.
It was it was him coming home. Birdman's brother. They call him Giggity or whatever. Anyways, he was gone for like 20-something years. And you know how they tore down all the projects, Magnolia projects, and they built those townhomes and stuff like that? So he does this little thing about he's acting like baby's brother. He comes home and he's looking all around. I'm going to send you a link. It's hilarious.
That's how I felt.
Yeah.
Like not even to no directions, nowhere to go, how to get places. So I think those were the two hardest things for me, like coming home.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. Going to, it's like a whole new city. You got to figure it out. So I want you to tell everybody what you do today because I really want to hone in on that. I want you to plug Operation Restoration, but I want you to really tell people what made, I know what made you start it, but like the why, and then what you do for people today.
So yeah, I run a nonprofit. It's called Operation Restoration. It's a national nonprofit, but we're based in New Orleans, and it focuses specifically on women and girls and helping them to transition into society after incarceration by removing as many barriers as possible to make that reentry easier and more successful. It started because just the things that I told you earlier, like the dehumanization, constantly feeling humiliated, not having access to services, not being supported. I remember being in the halfway house, and because there were only 8 women in the halfway house, but 80 men, they didn't even talk to us. We didn't get provided the same resources or access to the resources because we were a smaller number. So the reentry for women, when it looks a lot different from men, it also becomes a lot harder because it's not a focal point. It's not something that people are talking about.
On the back burner.
So the organization basically was created to address those issues, to address the lack of resources, access to resources, and even just making sure that when we're talking about criminal legal issues, like women are also included, in the conversation. So over the years, we've been extremely successful in like working with women. We run 15 programs out of the organization. We tackle policy and legislation. We tackle housing, direct services. We do rapid response. We do disaster response. We we run a community bail fund, making sure people are able to go back to court. We have multiple education programs. We're training formerly incarcerated people for careers in the lab because, that is what I got out and I did. So we have a lab assistant program that we run in the community as well as inside the prison. We have a college and prison program in partnership with Tulane that we've been running for the last 5 years, where we have 36 women who are enrolled toward their Bachelor of Science in Social Sciences from Tulane University. We're going through the accreditation process right now to get the prison as an accredited Tulane site. So there are just like multiple avenues that we are attacking to try to address the inadequacies that women face when they're being released. And then a lot of us women who were incarcerated know that the issue started when we were girls. So we provide the same services. We're working on mentorship with girls. We support a lot of girls who have moms that are incarcerated, that are in college, helping to like support them through fees. Or, we found out the number one food insecurity issue for kids that are in college are like not having access to a refrigerator in their room or a microwave in their room. So we help buy those things to make sure that those kids, if they're counting on the cafeteria or food to be given to them, that they can at least take it back to the room and put it in the refrigerator or heat it up for later, when the dining hall and all those things are closed. So we really try to
I never even thought about that.
That's smart. Because you got to leave it there. It's like, I don't have anywhere to put it.
Yeah, like they have to waste it almost.
Yeah.
And
it's
then they
like,
have to come back. If they don't get no bread, they ain't going to eat, college kids.
But too, like when the dining hall closes, like there's not many campuses where the dining hall is open all night.
All night.
So a lot of campuses, the dining hall may be closed at 5 or 6, but if they're up late studying or something is going on, or, we try to encourage them to also apply for like food stamps. They used to give students food stamps. Now that's an issue, just different things. But the number one issue is like not having anywhere to keep it cold and being able to heat it up. Contributed to a lot of the food insecurity issues, for kids. So we started, being intentional about, I'm like, that's a low lift. That's something that's really small that could impact, kids while they're trying to get an education and their parents are incarcerated, So little things like that. But we really focus a lot heavily on policy, hence why I was at the legislature today.
The circus.
Yeah, listen, I told people they suck your soul out in there. But really passing quality policy that allows lives to be impacted in a better way. You know, the first piece of policy we passed here in Louisiana was the ban the box on college applications.
I remember
so
that.
removing the box off of college applications, asking had you been convicted or incarcerated, removing that box allowed people to actually have access to higher education. We made Louisiana the first state to do that in 2017. We've done it in 7 additional states since then. We've worked on reinstatement of Pell, so now people who are incarcerated.
I remember they did it. Didn't they do a story about you with? So you want to tell that story real quick?
No, you tell it. Go.
I don't know. I just know. Okay, tell me if I'm wrong. If I remember it correctly. Now that you said that, it kind of refreshed my memory. You originally applied, and they denied you. Mm-hmm. Then you lied. Not lied, but you just didn't
did.
get it.
I unchecked the box.
Unchecked the box. You got in.
2 years later. Yep.
Yeah, and so but just goes to show you, like, they denied you. Perfectly capable human being of going to get in that.
Same transcript, same application. The only change I made was I unchecked the box. I was denied within 24 hours when I checked the box, and I was accepted within 24 hours when I unchecked the box.
And let me ask you a question. Has anybody ever explained to you, because it doesn't make sense to me, what is the purpose of even asking? If a person has enough gall to go get an education, why would you impede progress? Is there a reason?
No. So most colleges are under the fallacy that they're legally required to ask the question. There's no legal requirement because they think about, if I allow someone on campus who has a conviction and something happens, legally they could be sued or they're responsible for like allowing the person admission. There's no legal requirement for colleges to ask this question. But then they come up with things like, oh, sexual assault on campus is really high. Absolutely. And you should address that. But knowing that 50% of the crimes that are committed on campus are committed by non-students. And the 50% that are committed by students, 90% of that 50% have never committed a crime, ever.
Yeah.
So like, who are you really trying to target when you're asking this question?
Background.
Right. It's not even about public safety. So Arizona State University.
It's a good stat, by the way.
Was the largest public university in the country. So during the Obama administration, they voluntarily removed it off of their application, right? And there was no impact on campus safety at all in any negative way. So there are multiple schools that have been doing this for a long time. But the problem is that if it's not legislated, it can change at any moment.
Man, well, look, we're out of time, but man, I could talk to you for another 3 hours.
This is awesome. I was supposed to be somewhere 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do a part 2, 3, 4, and 5, and 6. I know you got plenty of stories and things to tell us. Well, we appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely.
And we'll have to get you back. And
thank y'all for having me.
No,
but
thank you for making time.
Operation Restoration, www.or-nola.org is the website, and on all social media channels, it's Operation Restoration, the OR.
And we're going to plug it on
there are going to be
pages.
links in the description.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.